we stopped by the Icon booth. They have a new set of wheels here that are street legal beadlocks.
I'm Dylan from Icon, and we've come up with this wheel recently. We've patented it. What we're doing is we're keeping the tire on the rim in a different method than is typically done with your traditional beadlock. So one of the drawbacks of the traditional beadlock is it's not DOT compliant, and that's because if anything fails, the ring can come off and the tire can leave the vehicle. So what we've done is we've used a traditional rim profile that retains the bead, and then we come in behind the bead and support the bead from popping off the rim with a bunch of pins that go through the wheel. So these pins are O-ring sealed. They're a high tensile strength pin that goes through the wheel, is threaded in, and comes up behind the bead and supports it from popping off the bead lock area. So we've done quite a bit of testing. Of course, we've done the field testing. We've also done some lab testing where we sent it out to the official D-Bead lab. They actually ran out of travel on their test machine before they could get it to come off the bead. What's a specific manner in which you test bead breaking off the rim.
Okay.
So we did one without the Innerlock technology. Then we did another one with Innerlock technology. The machine ran out of travel, so we never really were able to pop the tire off the bead. But
really?
it ended up at about 4 times the force when their machine ran out of travel. So it's somewhere beyond that.
That's
we know
really
that
cool.
at least.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then, of course, all the real-world testing that we've done, where you air down to the point where you're really not even gaining anything. We go beyond the gains of low tire pressure just to see what will happen, and we haven't had any issues with it at all.
So what tire pressure do you recommend running these
So,
at?
The tire pressure that I recommend is no longer dependent on your concerns about popping a tire off the rim. It's now more of a concern of what's the optimal traction. So the optimal traction depends on the way of the vehicle and the type of tire and whatnot. But say it's 10 psi is when the tire is its maximum compliant. You go lower than that and you start rolling it on the sidewall and you're not gaining any traction at that point. But if you do, the tire is still staying on the rim.
Yeah, so you can go down in the single digit PSI.
You can go lower,
you needed to,
you can go beyond
Yep.
where it's even helping you.
Yep.
And now it's a detriment, but the tire's still staying on the rim.
Wow, that's
so
pretty
then
cool.
you can work your way back up to where the traction is great and you know what your new tire pressure is. So the other thing is really the tire pressure now, the safe tire pressure is now determined on other things. Overheating the tire, which is how tires get destroyed from low pressure. Low pressure and driving too fast heats the tire. And that's a concern whether you have a traditional wheel or beadlock or whatever. And then, of course, handling.
Tell me about the installation process with these, because we've got a whole bunch of
Right.
extra bolts going on here on
So
these
it's
wheels.
it's a lot easier to mount the tire than in a traditional beadlock. So you take the pins and you just thread them in so the head of the pin is flush with the inside of the wheel. Then you put the tire on with a machine like you normally would. You inflate it, you pop the bead on like you normally would, and then you just thread the bolt in the rest of the way.
So you still need a tire machine to get the
Sure.
wheel seated on.
Yeah, but there's no extra. There isn't a big sequence or anything like that. Once you get the tire popped over the bead, just like you would on any other wheel, you just run the bolts in, you torque them. Then the other nice thing is that once these bolts are installed, they are torqued to a static setting, so they're not seeing cycle loads over over their lifespan. So the bolts on a regular beadlock rim, they're always flexing. And so if they're always flexing because of the loads that the tire is putting on it every time it rotates, they fatigue rather quickly and then they break.
Yep.
So if you don't replace your bolts on a beadlock rim at some interval when they fatigue, you're eventually going to have broken beadlock bolts. So they take maintenance. That's the other thing that DOT doesn't like. They don't like to see a wheel design that takes regular maintenance. They want to be set it and forget it situation and be safe for the life of the assembly.
So you don't have to
is.
you don't have to keep torquing these on,
Right, you don't
on
torque
any
them,
sort of
you don't
interval.
have to exchange the bolts for fresh ones because they fatigued or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because they're static 99.9% of their life until you put a DB load on it, which might be, each individual bolt might only see that, 6 or 10 times in its lifespan. And it's just there hanging out until it's needed, as opposed to traditional beadlock where it's there all the time, even when it's not needed, holding the tire together.
So how do you keep air in them during the installation process? Because
So
if you put the bolts in, then you wouldn't be able to seat the wheel, right?
So when you pop the bead, because it's only the threads, you get a little air passing the threads. So you pop the tire on, there's a little hissing, and then you let all the pressure out so that you can seat the seal under no pressure, and then you just air it back up. So the other benefits is it weighs less because there isn't as much stuff going on in that extra ring, so they weigh quite a bit less than a traditional beadlock.
What do one of these wheels weigh with all the hardware
They're
installed?
in the high 20s, depends on the size, but high 20s, low
17,
30s.
yeah.
They also cost less because it's not as complicated.
Yeah, so where are you guys at for price point on
We're
these?
retail's right around $360 a wheel.
360 wheel?
Yeah.
That's not bad at all for a beadlock.
Depends on the color and
Yeah.
style and whatnot.
And so are you just offering these, and I see you got the silver, and so what other colors are available for these?
We've got bronze and black.
Yep.
And then we've got all your 5 and 6 lug bolt patterns covered. We're working on 8 lug bolt patterns, and then other styles and other sizes are coming soon.
Okay, and so for like a 17, you can get these in a 17 by 9?
8.5,
8.5, okay.
Mm-hmm.
An awesome alternative from Icon for beadlocks. Go check out Icon and their new wheels they have. And thanks so much for walking us through.
Great, thank
and
you very much.
explaining this. Yeah.
Appreciate it.